time.
Here we go, another Square Dance Callers Talking. Tonight, I have a man in Nashville, Tennessee. I've got Ken Burke tonight. How are you, sir?
I am doing peachy keen, man.
It is good to see you again. We spent a little time a few weeks ago when we were at the convention in Tennessee. We got to know each other a little bit then. I'd heard of you before, and I'd seen you a couple times, but we really got to spend some time together. You're a big baseball fan. You got your St. Louis shirt on. We won't get too deep into baseball because most people listen to this for the Square Dance stuff. But
besides, we know where the Cardinals are going this year. That's how
we know where the Cardinals are going.
I stick with them through thick or thin. So, and it's definitely thin now. In my lifetime, I've never seen them finish last, but I think they got a good shot at it this year.
The best part of baseball is there's always next year if you don't make it.
That's right.
Of course, I've got all my baseball stuff on tonight, in honor of the baseball that we share. But let's do this. Ken Burke, you're in Nashville, Tennessee right now. Yes, sir?
Absolutely. Yeah.
How long you been there?
Let's see. I've been here about a year and a half now.
Okay. Where are you originally from?
Well, I was born and raised in Illinois. That's where I started calling, actually. But spent most of my last, let's see. What lifetime I've lived about 5 lifetimes. This is my 5th one. My 4th lifetime was in Michigan. No, most people know me from Southwest Michigan, around St. Joe, Benton Harbor, Michigan, and which is close to South Bend, Indiana. Ironically enough, it's just right across the border. I lived about 15 minutes from Notre Dame.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
College football fan, by the way, also.
Yeah. It's funny. I mean, I like to see Notre Dame do well, but I wasn't a Notre Dame lover or hater because wherever you go, Notre Dame, it draws a reaction. Let's put it that way.
Sure it does. Yep. So,
but it's a beautiful campus, beautiful area, and I do miss it a little bit. But I'll tell you one thing I do not miss is that white stuff in this weather. In the winter.
I've only heard about it. I don't care to ever experience it, but yeah, I've heard about
it. A lot of people love it. A lot of people go north, even north of where I live. They go up to northern Michigan or up in the UP.
Now, where you were in Michigan, did you have lake effect snow? I don't even know what that is.
Well, I'll put it this way. Yes, the simple answer is yes. But there was a time when, and I'll take a couple years back, maybe 3-4 years. It depends on how windy it is, because it can be, even if there's not a system coming through, if it's really windy, a lot of times it will miss the shoreline, like St. Joe, Benton Harbor, that area, and the grass will still be green. It might be powder on it, but we could get, because I was about 20 miles in, we would get 10, 12, 14 inches while they got nothing. And in reverse, lake effect, if it's not real windy, they would get hit hard and it wouldn't even reach us. It's just really strange. And the other things I don't miss is it's dreary all winter. It's rare when you see the sunshine, and when you see the sunshine out, it just makes you feel great.
Wow.
But to be honest, I mean, the square dancing scene wasn't, COVID hit it pretty hard, and we weren't doing anything. And, I had started traveling a little bit more, getting down south to travel. And I'm like, man, I got to get out of here. So it was time. My kids are all grown. I miss them.
Sure.
But there was stuff happening. Yeah. And I don't regret it at all.
You settled in Nashville, and like I said, I've been to Tennessee a lot. I've been to Nashville a couple of times. Beautiful area. It's a great place to be, especially after living the lifetime you did, the fourth lifetime in Michigan in the snows.
Absolutely.
So you have all the seasons in Nashville.
You really do. But the funny thing is, you can get even the forecast of maybe, they say, well, we might have as much as of an inch of snow. Well, they never get it. Very seldom get it. But even the forecast, everything shuts down.
Sure.
Schools, they don't have any snow removal equipment at all. Everything stops here.
Yeah.
And to me, I think it's hilarious. But
yeah, same with Atlanta. They're a little more prepared lately, but yeah, an inch is shutting it down, or the thought of is shutting it down.
Hey, even rain shuts things down here.
Oh, it does. It does.
I mean, the conditions could be right for a tornado. I mean, okay.
Could be right for a tornado.
I know it amuses me. That's all.
No, all right, Ken, you're a square dance caller, a really good square dance caller. So tell me where it started for you, man. When did you start dancing?
You know, unlike Dean, it wasn't before I was born. It was a long time after that. My parents, nobody in my family danced. As a matter of fact, when I was married, my ex-wife worked with a gal who square danced, and she was married to a guy who was a son of a caller, and he actually called some himself. They were trying to get me to try square dancing. Now I remembered what it was like in school, and I said, nah, I hate it. I hated that, because you had a PE teacher with a record playing Turkey in the Straw. They didn't know what they were doing, and it was miserable. So I said, and it took them 3 years to get me. I'll make this, it's a long story, but I'll make it as short as possible.
No, go ahead.
I finally, well, first of all, this gal that she worked with, her grandparents also danced. And they had a farm out in the country in Charleston, Illinois. That's where Eastern Illinois University is. Probably never heard of that, but that's where I graduated from.
Okay.
So anyway, every October they'd have this wiener roast, big bonfire and everything. They'd invite friends and family and all that. And they had a square dance caller. So every year they would do a little, one-nighter type, a little party, introduce it. Well, of course, as you know, being the baseball fan that you are, it's in October, playoff time. So I would always find an excuse to sneak into the house to watch a playoff game.
Okay.
Oh, they're getting ready to do that square dance stuff, No way. I hate it. So I would always get out of that. Now, finally, after about 3 years, I told them I got tired of them bugging me. They said, well, they kept saying, just come a couple times, first lessons are free, and it's not for everybody, but if you try it a couple times, don't like it, fine. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll come once. After the third year, I'm like, I'll go once. So we did. And my wife and I, we didn't talk about it all week. I just told her I was going to go once. So come Sunday night, that's when the lessons were. I'm getting dressed, and she goes, what are you doing? I said, well, they said we need to come twice. We might as well. We didn't even discuss it. And she said, well, great. And be honest with you, it was like, it wasn't anything that I imagined. It's about the people. And I guess I'm like a lot of guys. They drag you, the wives or the women drag you there because they want to dance.
Yep.
And me, I was, no. No, I don't need this stuff. But I liked it for the choreography. I liked it for it's a thinking man's game.
Yep.
I like my math, solving problems and stuff like that. So I'm like, yeah, this is pretty cool stuff. And actually, you meet a lot of nice people, and it was it's the social aspect. And really, you don't need to dance. You don't need to break dance or any choreographed stuff. Heck, that's line dancing. You just do what I'm told. It is all cool.
Yeah, the community is as much the part of the activity for me a lot of times. It's who you meet, who you see.
Absolutely. Without it, I wouldn't have met you.
That is absolutely correct. You run up on people that you would have never met. And, and I'll call dances and there'll be 2 or 3 people there, older people, obviously with square dancing for the most part, but they don't even dance anymore, but they come just to sit there, have a piece of a sandwich, and just sit there and talk to everybody. And they'll tell me, I hadn't been able to dance for 2 years, but I still love coming out. There's very few things you get that with today.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, it's great just to have that community.
Well, and I think, absolutely. And I think my kids benefited from it too, coming to dances, because it's kind of like, when you think about it, most people, the only older people that the kids know are their grandparents, and they don't think of them as being necessarily that old. But but when you're around people, you find out that people are just people. Doesn't matter what your age are. Is. So I don't know. I think it was good for them, and it's a great family activity.
Sure.
Well, it is about the atmosphere, the people.
It is the atmosphere and the people. So you started dancing and you got pulled in with the choreography and all that. Is that what made you decide to start trying to call back then, or what brought you into the calling part of it?
That's a funny thing too, because that's kind of ironic in that I wasn't really interested in calling, believe it or not. And we had this thing called an amateur night. Mm-hmm. You don't see many people doing that anymore, but
no, you don't.
They used to do that every year. They have an amateur night. Say, oh well, anybody's interested, you can memorize a singing call. No big deal, I just and I tell you what, every caller that's ever done that. Did you have to do that?
What's that?
I mean, what was the first time you did it? Did you memorize a call or something?
Yeah, no, the first time I did it, the gentleman that was our club caller, I had heard him talking to somebody else about teaching him the call. And I said, hey, I'd like to learn how. And so he did that. He let me pick out a couple of his records. He said, take them home and practice them. And I said, well, that's going to be tough because I don't have a record player. So I found a couple other things. And so I practiced a couple. And so I did that for about a year. He'd put me up every other week and I'd do a singing call. And
nice.
Then he was like, you need to start working on some pattern. I was like, that's a no-go on that. Let's just keep doing singing calls.
You're right.
So I tried to avoid it, but yeah. And then I got into the pattern and all, but that's how it was. Singing calls for about the first year.
And it's funny, isn't it? Because, I mean, I would rather do pattern than singing calls anyway. But starting out, I remember the record, Rhythm Records, Rhythm of the Rain, the old.
Oh yeah.
Listen to the rhythm of the falling rain, and it wasn't a big deal. I learned. I just memorized. I mean, Bob Byer, who I respect highly. I mean, I didn't know him then, but I thought that he was great on the call side. I just followed whatever, memorized what he did. Now, even after that, people say, "Oh yeah, you got a knack for this. You should." I still wasn't that interested in it. I was working full time. I didn't have time for all that stuff. But really, the factory that I worked in, I was in inspection, quality, and I guess we'd been dancing about 3 years, and we shut down. I mean, it closed. So I was off work for some time, and in that time, we were still dancing, and I kind of got into the calling bit. I would mess around with it, and just kind of playing around with it, and being an angel in class or whatever. The caller let me do a little bit, and just gradually, I don't know, I caught the bug.
Very nice. Well, I'm glad you did. That's for sure. When do you think you started calling your own dances?
Oh, gee, it's a funny thing too, because what would it be called? serendipity. I don't know. It was just a confluence of events. We had in our area in central Illinois, of course, dancing was much bigger back then. And going back, and if we can back up a little bit, we talk about, we have a lot of older people. The average age was a lot younger then. A lot more people dancing. I mean, big dancing. Even in a rural, little bitty town, might dance 15 squares on a Saturday night. Dance every other week, and big clubs like in the Chicago area, you go in, it's no big deal to have 20, 30 squares for a dance. But it's no use talking about those days. But when I go back into it, we had, like, I had one caller, an older gentleman that passed away. We had a couple that were retiring in the area, two that transferred jobs. And one of them, as a matter of fact, is Ken Burke, who lives, I think you know who he is, down in Murfreesboro, Tennessee.
Ken Burke?
Ken Burke. And, him and another fella who helped me out a little bit, that gave me dances. Most times, people were booking 2, 3, 4 years down the road. And if you were a new caller, the only opportunities you got was if somebody put you on. And to me, nowadays, I hate doing that. I hate doing a guest spot. I mean, and when you think about it, especially if you go to a dance where, you got a good caller or national caller, and I learned this early on, you can't really impress anybody, but you can sure make a bad impression.
Sure, absolutely.
And I had, I there's a lot of callers. I could name some callers that put me on. Tony, Oxendine, Jerry Story, and they gave me some great advice. Scott Smith, who else? Marshall Flippo, Ken Bauer. Those are all idols of mine. And every one of them, they'd say, just do what you know. Don't try to get fancy. Don't try to impress anybody. And they were so right. And they'd say, don't be afraid to crank it up. Do what you know. Talk about nervous, though, when you're in the hall with those guys.
Oh, sure.
And they put you on. Holy cow. I lost a couple teeth, I think, from, microphone, shaking so bad. But no, it was a good experience. I mean, and I don't know. It's not the same anymore. It just, it was a good experience.
Do what you know.
Well, because I've seen guys crash and burn.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Because you get really nervous, and so I just was like, okay, I'm going to keep it simple. I mean, really, I go back to my sporting days, and it was always like the KISS concept.
Yep.
Keep it simple, stupid.
Yep.
Do the basics, and you'll be fine.
That's that's the main thing, especially when if you're at a national convention or a state convention, and even if it's your state. I've got Georgia coming up next month, and a lot of people know me in Georgia, in the Georgia area, but not everybody. So am I going to go up there and go, man, I've been thinking of this move I wanted to try. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do that with my club that everybody knows me. We have fun on a Thursday night. And I'm going to go, hey, from this position, let's try this. I'm not going to stroll into a national convention or a state convention and go, hey, watch what I know, because I don't know more than most people up there. So, that's great advice, man. That's what I look for on these advice, and just do what you know. What you're comfortable with.
That's a good plan. Of course, now I'm more experienced, so I can do that. But I still wouldn't, like you said, if you're at a festival, I might have some plans going in, but I have usually already worked out the kinks.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I learned a long time ago, and it's cool when I go on the road and you're calling dances for a week and a half, 2 weeks. in a different place. And people think, well, that's really cool. You got us through this or that. But you know what? After you've done it so many times, you figure out it gets better every time. You figure out what to say, when to say it, how to say it in layman's terms so that people are successful with it.
Exactly.
And you don't want to do that cold turkey. And I'll give a shout out to the group I had up in South Bend, Indiana, and Southeast Michigan, or Southwest Michigan. And that includes Northwest Indiana. Those folks, I had a great group of people to work with, and I could experiment with all sorts of things. And they would go to weekends, and they would say, a lot of times they'd be the only square standing when the caller do something funky. And they'd say, no big deal. We do that with Ken all the time, you know. And that really makes you feel good. But they thank me a lot, but I'm grateful for them because they let me.
Yeah. You need to take the dancers.
Oh, absolutely. And we need each other.
Yeah. Yeah, you want dancers that, one, just enjoy the activity of it, but also
absolutely,
they don't want to necessarily learn something every time, but once you show them that, right, they know they can, the confidence that they have walking onto a state convention or something like that, you know, because I'll get from a lot of the students that I've had lately, because I've just finished a class, they'll come to me and they're like, you think it's okay if I go to the Tennessee convention? I was like, yeah, you can go to the Tennessee convention, you know, because they don't know what to expect.
Sure.
And I'm like, hey, it's just square dancing. And if you make a mistake, grab somebody and go back to where you started from. You'll be fine. You know, so
without a doubt.
That's big when you have a group like that help you as much as you help them, for sure.
And it's funny you mentioned that. It's you ever called to be, yeah, you'll have people that just graduated, they're new dancers, and they're like, oh, they have a great time and everything, but you know, they're struggling a bit. And you come back the next year or the next time through that area, and they'll come up, oh man, you have improved so much since the last time. And I was like, well, it couldn't have had anything to do with you, but I just smile and I really appreciate that. I've been working on it.
Yeah, you'll get that, you know. So, God, there's some of the dancers you just love to be around them. They always talk you up for the most part. I'm sure not everybody likes you, but that's just like everything else in the world. But
everything in life,
that come up and they're just like, man, you are awesome. And I'm like, well, maybe for you I'm awesome, but you know, I'm working on it.
And that's a funny thing, you know, when I started calling, that's another thing callers help me with a bit. And you learn, because at first you want everybody to like you. You want to be successful. You want every square to make it, and everybody just think everything's just cool. And they're on top of the world because they're successful. You learn real quick that not everybody's going to be happy.
Yep.
And as long as you accept that, and it's just like now, and I see this kind of topsy-turvy. A lot of what it should be. I believe in like the 90-10 or the 80-20 rule. If I got 80%, 90% of the floor moving at all times and they're successful, that's good.
Sure.
Now the others, you know, you try to bring them along, but you can't call to the lowest common denominator. You're not going to please everyone. Sure. And not everybody's going to like you as a caller or a person. Once you accept that, the main thing is just to be yourself and be honest, be genuine, and hey, it's life, man. It's a microcosm of life, isn't it?
It is. It is that you have to be. You got to get your own voice and be yourself. Because I certainly can't go up there. I couldn't go up there, even if I'd watched you for a year and danced to you. I'm not going to go up and imitate Ken Burke. I'm not going to go up and imitate Tony Oxendine.
Right.
I might use some of the calls you said if I can figure out how to get to them, but you know, but I can't go up there. I'm not going to have the same personality or the same, you know, one-liners and things like that. But
you have some good one-liners though, buddy.
Oh yeah, I have a couple.
I've heard them.
I have a couple.
Well, we won't even go there. I don't. Some of them can't. Nah, never mind. But anyway, I will speak to that. What we're talking about, though.
Okay.
But the thing I see nowadays, and we really need callers. Well, we need numbers, we need dancers, but we need callers out of that too. And I see some of the newer callers, and I tell them, I say, what you need to do is dance. Don't stop dance. I see a lot of these guys start calling and they stop going to dances. Man, when I started calling, I was fortunate enough that we had a club in Champaign, Illinois. That's where the University of Illinois is.
Okay.
They danced every Thursday night, and they'd have traveling callers. I mean, any of the big names, every Thursday.
Wow.
We'd make that hour trip up there, and I would ask if I could, because I was learning to call. I would ask if I could record. And sure, they all said yes. Wow, no big deal. And I would sit there and I would study that stuff. I would write it down. I read. It's a lot of work to learn this stuff. It really is. It takes a long time. But you can't, maybe one week I'd if I was able to call the next week and I had just danced to, say, Gary Shoemake, well, I might use some of the sayings he used or whatever, and because that was fresh in my mind. But and I can still tell you now, the stuff that I use, I've made it my own.
Yep.
I can tell you if I use some kind of saying, an old time saying, and somebody would ask me, Charlie, you'd say, well, where'd you get that saying? Marshall Flippo. Or, an old timer like Burl Main or Jerry Haig. Because I have a lot of favorite callers. They're all different, and they're all, once you realize that you have to be yourself, you can use things that other callers say. You can learn from all that stuff, but I'll never be a Tony Oxenine.
Gotcha.
Why even try? There's only one.
Yep.
Or like a Jerry Story. Johnny Preston was another one that I had the pleasure of working with for about 15 years. We did a festival in Michigan. I learned a lot from Johnny. And it's just, everybody's different and everybody's unique in their own way. And we have a lot of talented callers out there.
Sure. Well, and on that note, with Johnny Preston and all that, as you were starting out, when you were coming up, anybody stick out as mentors, just working with you and stuff like that on a regular basis?
Not per se on a regular basis, but let's see. It was a little more competitive back then, in that a lot of callers had their own thing and they were protective of their own territory. You know what I'm saying?
I have heard that. Luckily, I never experienced that, but I've heard about that. Go ahead.
You don't get that as much now as you used to, but I didn't have any one person who helped me out. I guess there was a guy, Jim Poorman was a good friend, and his dad Bob. They taught me how to dance, and I guess they encouraged me more than anyone, starting out anyway. But there was a lot of callers. If I would say Jerry Story was a big influence on me. And when I got started and started traveling and things, Jerry, if he needed a replacement sometime, would recommend me, and that was the biggest honor.
Wow, sure.
And Bob Byer was great to me. Scott Smith, who I don't know, he recorded for Chaparral. He was a big help, and remember the first time he put me on, the Chaparral was doing a trail in at the Nationals, and I was there dancing. And he came up and, hey, you want to call a tip? I don't know, I mean, you got Gary Shoemake, Ken Bauer, Flippo, and I'm like, he says, oh, come on. He said, and then I'll never forget this. He goes, don't be afraid to crank it up.
Nice.
And he says, you'll be fine.
That's awesome.
And it is, and it's kind of, I hearken it back to my days running in college. I was a competitive runner, and the coach I had, Dr. O'Brien, may he rest in peace. He was a great guy. He didn't mince words. It wasn't like he says, "You've already done the work. Here's what I want you to do." He had a game plan. I have all of the confidence in the world in you. I'm gonna let you go and you do your thing. Here's what I'd like. And I really think that's important, and that's also important for dancers. When I go someplace, especially for the first time, what I'm trying to do, the first tip, is I'm trying to win everybody over. I'm trying to get them to buy into me, into my program. And once you do that, by the second or third tip, I can get them through a lot of stuff because they trust you. And a lot of people don't understand that. I learned that from Jerry Story, who I'll never be Jerry's equal. The guy was phenomenal. But he would do that. You would see him, he would get people thinking, and I even told him that once when we sat down in Kansas City when we were doing the Hasda dance, and we talked about it, and I said, Jerry, and here's what I thought of Jerry. I thought, because I read somewhere where an artist is someone that takes something extremely difficult and makes it look easy. And we have that. I mean, that's a great talent. But also an entertainer is somebody that can take something very simple and make people think, wow, I'm fantastic, aren't I? Well, that's my goal, is to try and do you got to have a combination of those two things. And then you've got somebody that's blessed with a fantastic voice and charisma like Tony Oxendine, or Johnny Preston is another one that the guy could sing opera. I mean, and he's a great caller. Another one that I really admire is Bronk Wise.
Bronk Wise. I've never had the opportunity to meet him.
I'll tell you what.
I've got some of his music.
My gosh, the guy he can play the guitar like, no one else, and the guy is so talented. He can call C1, C2 smooth. But there's so many great callers that we have in the activity that too many to mention. We could go on, but those are just some of the ones that have influenced me a lot.
Well, what levels do you call to now?
With Hotlanta, I did my first C1 tip.
Wow. Okay.
Back in in the spring. It didn't go too bad. I just because I use a lot of C1 calls. I'm not comfortable calling it. I don't know the entire list, but I am going to be teaching C1 for the Hotlanta group this year virtually. So I'm hoping to, get more. I don't want to be known as a challenge caller. Let's put it that way, because that's not my meat and potatoes per se. But I do enjoy it. I mostly call through A2 though.
A2. Okay. In all those, and I ask everybody, do you have a favorite call? Just one of your. I mean, I know when you're calling into the A's, there's a lot of calls. Is there one that you just really like?
It's funny you ask that, because I wouldn't know. There's a big tie. If I was to say, I guess I would say no. I don't have a favorite call, but here's what I have a favorite of.
Okay.
Body flow.
Body flow. Gotcha.
Doggone it. I get so tired of, if I could just tell people, and sometimes I've taken groups, and maybe the second or third tip, I'll say, okay, forget everything and I just want you to feel the music and dance to it. And I'll show them a few examples, of if you're going to the left, continue going to the left. My next call is going to flow from one to the other. Because I think a lot of our dancers nowadays have forgotten to listen. They've turned it off, and because they're so used to doing the same thing over and over and over and over. When really, when you think about it, there's hundreds of ways to do a call. And so if it was, and that's part of the reason I know some of the challenge calls at flows. You know, there's a call called with the flow, as a matter of fact, that I call all the time, even at mainstream dances, because it's, you know, if you're going a certain direction, whoever's the leader does a walk, the trailer does a dodge. Pretty simple.
Yeah.
And I just like to, I like calls that flow. I like wheel around and reverse wheel around. There's an example for you.
Yeah, you don't hear a lot of that. In certain places, you don't hear a lot of wheel around, reverse wheel arounds.
And I love to work that kind of thing. And I just like people to be successful, but I believe every dance, everyone should learn something.
Yep, I agree with that. Body flow, man, body flow. If you're calling, and I've just started picking up on this, if you have good body flow with your calling, dancers that aren't as strong will look stronger, because if they just go with it, when you have to start and stop, and you see it when you teach lessons, you can have a good dancer that cannot spin the top because you're stopping to get everybody else. All right, this is what you're going to, and an experienced dancer can't walk a call. But when you have body flow, and you can get a dancer that's not as strong that can complete stuff like that. And so the body flow is huge.
Yeah, and that's what I'll tell them. I'll say, just forget about what you've learned. In fact, I know definitions are great, and I recommend every dancer to learn the definition. But what I would rather them learn are the general rules of square dancing, and one of them is, you know, the body flow thing. If you're moving a certain direction, just continue to do that. Don't. What I liked from the very get-go, I have a new group out in Cookeville, which is about an hour east, and in fact, we'll be dancing tomorrow night. And one of the guys who's learning to be a caller, by the way, he goes, you know, we had this past year. He goes, I think I know what you're doing. And I said, what's that, Tim? And he says, you're training us to listen, aren't you? I said, you got it. He figured me out.
Nice.
You caught me. But no, seriously, because that's what it is you're supposed to lead them, and you have to train people to realize that you're going to give a command before they're finished with the other call, because that's the only way you can dance smoothly, is one has to roll into the other, and it has to be a continual. And I see so much of this now where you get that start and stop, like what you say. Mm-hmm. You do a call, stand there. Okay, there's another one. No, that's square standing. Yeah. You're like an airplane. I think Ed Foote used that, which is another one of my mentors. Great technical caller. He said that if you don't have the flow, if you're doing this, what I call square standing, not square dancing, he says you're like a plane with one wing.
Okay.
And you'll be kind of rudderless because you don't have that. It's like start, stop. What am I doing? I mean, we should be dancing, and I don't know. No. Anyway, I could talk about that forever, just like we could talk about baseball.
Body flow and timing. Good example, and I learned it a long time ago. If you want to do, say, flutter wheel, and once they finish the flutter wheel, say sweep a quarter more. If you don't time that, you don't say flutter wheel, sweep 1/4. In that flow, you're going to get good dancers and be, what do you want me to sweep? I don't, because they don't hear it. It's the timing of it and the body flow.
Absolutely.
You're moving that way. So just something as simple as that. The right and left through, veer left. If you just say right and left through and stop, veer left. There is no flow. It doesn't look as good. It's body flow. Man, that's great. I like this podcast or for the callers, and that's great advice.
Absolutely. And roll is another perfect example that where dancers are not very well schooled in that, but that has to do totally with body flow. You have to
the way you're doing.
Before they're done with the call, so that they have a direction of flow.
Mm-hmm.
And you can really have a lot of fun with that stuff. But and when you're talking about flutter wheel and reverse flutter, square dancing is not, you should be moving the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard. You have to teach that from the get-go. And I'm not sure that everybody's getting that right now. Because for every action, there's a reaction in square dancing. Mm-hmm. And I was fortunate enough, the caller that taught me was big on that. Counter dancing is what he called it. For example, you get the boys in the center, you say, boys run. Well, the girls aren't just standing there. They're moving too. You're without changing directions, you're assuming the vacated position. So it's a continuous thing. I mean, you shouldn't stand and wait. And but that comes back into the body flow thing too, and the reaction time. And just like with flutter wheel, you train the people. If the girls flutter wheel, boys, start moving. Don't wait for her to come there and drag your butt back.
Yeah, I always did that as a dancer. Before I started calling, I'm putting my hand up if I know where they're coming to, because I would know the calls, or I would start moving that way. So they're picking me up. They're not literally picking me up and moving me. They're just picking me up because I'm moving. I'm already going the direction they need to be going.
But if you're constantly moving, mm-hmm. you help all that. That should be an intrinsic thing. I feel like, yeah. And that's what some in some aspects we've lost that. Okay. That dancing part of it.
Well, we'll
keep working on it though.
Absolutely.
We're bringing it back.
I'm taking note. I take notes on all the podcasts I do. I've got to dance tomorrow night, and body flow will be a big part of tomorrow night for me. So something I'm working on.
Well, I want to hear about it then.
I will absolutely let you know about it. All your traveling around, man, and all those years that you've been traveling out on the road, any memorable venues, anything, festivals, any like a floor stand out to you?
Wow. Well, here, which lifetime do you want?
I'll take number 4. I like the Michigan because I don't have a whole lot of stories about that. Give me a good floor, a good venue. Well, hell, you're in South Bend. I mean, you got Notre Dame at your back at some point. Oh, yeah. So where else you got?
It was pretty awesome. And I've called on campus before, but, like a party one-nighter type thing.
Nice.
But venues. I enjoy doing parties anymore, and I didn't used to. As far as the traveling goes, it's 2 separate lifetimes as well, because when I got into the square dancing and was really working hard at it and learning it, and then I started traveling, because I'm going to go back to where we were before, I was fortunate that I had all those callers that were quitting, and I got an opportunity to call a lot of places before I was ready. I mean, my first dance, I had like 7 accomplished callers at my dance. And had probably 20 squares. I didn't know what I was doing. But so then when I got into it and working at it and started traveling, I had just started that. And then all of a sudden, well, I had custody of my kids. They were starting to get a little bit older, but we were divorced. And my wife had MS. I mean, she's since passed away, my ex-wife. But I got custody of the kids, so I kind of got out of calling for a while. I still doing some local stuff, and when I come back to calling, kids are grown and everything, and I'm like, where'd the dancers go? We'd already had a big fall off, mm-hmm. and so that's been 2 lifetimes as far as the calling stuff goes. So it's taken a while to get back into the traveling thing. But as far as venues, I mean, I remember calling in the first time. In fact, Tony Oxendine was there, Chattanooga, way back, and I was living in Illinois at the time. And he had me, it's the funniest thing, because with another couple, we went down to Chattanooga with another couple, and funny, we were all working the next day, so we drove all night, got no sleep, and went to work on a Monday morning. It was a Sunday afternoon dance, Tony Oxenine. There must have been 40, 50 squares there. Tony's doing his usual fantastic stuff. They were big Tony fans, this couple we ran around with. And Tony says, hey, he doesn't know it yet, but he did his patter thing, his middle of the dance or whatever. He says, Kenny doesn't know it yet, but he's going to come up and he's going to call this next one.
Oh, wow.
He didn't even warn me. Can you imagine that? And Chattanooga, I don't know if you know that the dance hall has since been torn down. It was fantastic. They had an upper level and lower level, floating wood floors. It was used 7 days a week. Now that was a memorable experience.
That's great.
But I tell you what, and I guess the other experience I had was that I would say memorable was when I called at the Nationals and I filled in for Mike Bramlett from Texas. And there's another fantastic caller, by the way. And Mike and I worked some together, but I didn't know him that well. But back in those days, if you were late to report in for your slot, they would call up and they would get a replacement, right? So he's in the hall. But then I got Tony walks right up front stage, and while I'm calling, I mean, I don't know how many squares there were, but I mean, that was a great experience. And one other time at the Nationals when Jerry was late for his spot, and I got these were great opportunities.
Yeah, sure.
And Jerry showed up. I had already gone down to be his replacement, but he showed up in time. He just didn't report like 15 minutes ahead or whatever you're supposed to do. And so I said, "Oh, go ahead and do it." And he insisted. He said, "No, you're going to call it." And so that, like I said, we all help each other, and you learn from all this stuff. And I learned do the right thing as a caller. That's all do
the right thing, yes, sir.
And I've learned from some of the examples that have been set for me, and I feel very fortunate in that.
When I came along, 10, 12 years ago now, everywhere I went, very welcoming. I went to a couple of places where I went with a square of people in the Atlanta area. A gentleman who still calls at one of the clubs here, phenomenal, has been calling for all of his life, Dan Mitchell.
Okay.
And I never had the opportunity to meet him prior to this. And I went to his club down in Atlanta with a square from where I am. And they told him, and they were like, "Yeah, Charlie's learning to call." And this still using records. And he was like, "Well, come up here and do something." And I was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa. You didn't listen very well." They said, "I'm learning to call. I don't want to just go up." And because I didn't have anything with me, and but I went up and I went through his records and I found City of New Orleans, which I've done a handful of times at the other clubs. And I'm like, "Let's do that." And he's like, "You gonna do some patter?" And I was like, No. We're not doing any patter. I don't have anything to even write my corners down with. But yeah, always welcoming. Everywhere I went after that, I was a gentleman about it. I was told, bring your stuff and leave it in your car until you're asked to bring it in. And I would do that. And so people put me up all the time, and I couldn't be more grateful at all the stuff they've done for me.
Right.
So, and I heard about it when I talked to some of the guys from California a while back. They were saying that back then, it was tough. People wouldn't put you up. You
That's right.
had to get your own spots. So
they were very protective, the old school, and it was very competitive. It was hard to break in. Like I said, I was fortunate. But I did learn a lot of stuff, like as to what you're talking about. I learned to carry my stuff, at least your microphone and some music with you, because I can remember a couple of times when I didn't expect to call, and then they ask you and say, "Oh, no big deal. Look through my stuff." It is so amazing, as much music as there is, to look through another caller's thing and not find one song. You say, "Oh my gosh, where do you get this stuff?" And I'm thinking, I have a ton hundreds of, oh my gosh, and it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's great. Yeah, it's just when they tell you look through the records, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm looking for. I haven't been called long enough. I don't know what these songs are. I'm looking for City of New. I was like, I've heard of that. So
you try and you panic, oh well, okay, this one will do. I've done it a time or two.
Yeah, and I did that. There was a few callers around here when they would say, hey, come up and do some pattern. I was like, well, stay with me. And some of the experienced guys, I was like, dude, they said, just call. I'll tell you how to get out of it. And so they're behind you, and they're like, slide through, square through 3. And I was like, okay.
Nice.
So, it always helped me out. But callers are fantastic for the most part.
Yeah, until you get working with the guys that, hey, the corner, you got it, and they'll, oh no, I have no idea where you're at. Yeah.
And that's just that I look over, where's the corner? And they're like, I wasn't watching. I don't know. You're just like, come on. So,
oh, well, we got a 50-50.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. So you take your chances.
Or, I work with a guy, Tim Teal?
Yeah. I just met Tim at the Nationals.
Okay. Tim and we do a lot of stuff together, and he is the biggest clown there is.
I have heard that. Okay.
And I'll tell you what, it's for some reason it works. We're like, I'm the straight man.
Okay.
And, I tell dancers that because they think I'm a little goofy anyway, but they'll say, oh, no way. And I said, well, you haven't danced to Tim yet, have you? I said, there's no way. Because I've had other callers that'll ask me, how do you work with Tim anyway? How do you do that? And I said, Tim's like having a karaoke machine. Okay. You just turn it on, let him go. I mean, it's Tim's going to be Tim, and I just I don't know, it just works.
Yeah. One of the days at the Nationals, we were staying in the same hotel, and they had the vans to take us over this past Nationals, and
oh yeah,
the van pulled up, and there was like 20 people standing there waiting to get on, and I looked over at him, and I didn't know him, and so I just started walking. He said, "You walking?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And of course, I had my box with me, so he knew what I was, obviously. And so we walked about a half mile to the thing, and we just started talking. He introduced himself, and then we rode the bus back that night, the van back. And so I talked to him a few more times, and really awesome dude. I'd never met him before. But yeah, I need to go back and watch some of his video stuff, but I've heard that he is a jokester when he's up there. So
there's
coming from you, sir, I'll take it as good information.
Well, there's only one Tim Teal. I'll tell you what. I have a blast working with him. You can never get the last word in on Tim.
Okay.
He's one of those. And being the comedian that you are, you appreciate that.
I do. So that's good stuff. I'm about 10 months away from an open mic. I'm going to go do my stand-up.
I would love to see that.
Okay, I'll let you know when that's going to happen. Man, if you're not listening to square dance music, what's some of your pastimes? I know you're athletic, but what music do you like, not square dance?
It's funny. You would assume that a lot of square dancers are into country music, right? Mm-hmm. I guess I'm a classic rock guy for the most part, but I do like my country. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not into the modern country.
No, okay.
I mean, just here and there it will, but a lot of it I guess I'm sounding like an old fogey now because a lot of it sounds they're doing the same stuff, and but I do like 80s 90s country. And I still
haven't met before, Ken. We've got quite a few things in common. Great thing.
And I know we like some of the same comedians.
We do.
Talked a little bit about that.
Big fans of the stand-up comedy. We were talking Bill Burr, and I've got to see a few of those guys. Bert Kreischer. Oh my God! And so I know this goes back my favorite probably of all time, Sam Kinison.
Oh my God! I just saw a. He does the bit on the sending food overseas. To help feed them. You
Oh
ever see
yeah.
it? And he starts screaming.
Yeah. You go where the food is.
Send them U-Hauls. This is sand. You can't grow food here. But no, he was great.
I'm gonna probably shortly. I'm gonna start a new podcast, and it's just me and you're gonna have some things to talk about. Not square dance related. Dude,
that would be awesome.
It is awesome. So we got that. You said earlier that when you ran in college, what type of athletics were you into?
I loved playing baseball all the way through high school, and I sort of regretted not going into it. But I found early on, like in high school, there's always coaches play favorites and all that, So I got tired of like the banker's son playing ahead of me and whatnot. And I got for the basketball team, I was like, we had to run laps around the balcony and stuff. And I would always keep up with like this great. He was a good track runner, I could keep up with him. And the coach was like, "Oh, you had to come out for cross country and track and stuff." And I got out there and I thought, I could run and win, and they can't bench you. They just let you just go. You did it on your own. So I kind of got in the individual thing, and it got me a scholarship to college and everything. And
wow, okay.
I was a long time ago. Those are lifetimes ago. I can't even, I was 2-time All-American, 10,000 meters.
Oh, jeez. Nice.
Yeah. And it was distance running. Now, I don't do that so much anymore. I'm very slow. It hurts. I don't have a runner's high. I actually did experience it way back when. You don't appreciate it as much when you're young. It's like kind of young and dumb. And then I don't think the human body was made to run marathons, but I did it.
Okay.
Is
that the longest you've ever run at a time? Just a marathon, or you weren't one of these ultra guys?
No. I had a couple of friends. That was insane. I must have run about 8 or 10 marathons. I won 3 of them, I think. And my best was 2 hours and 25 minutes.
Okay,
and
so there's one thing we do not have in common.
But nowadays I couldn't even run 200 yards at that pace that I ran 26 miles at. And I hated the marathon in that you were talking about ultras. No way. I got bored training. I could keep going. But when you had to get out there and you had to run your 20 milers or your 20 whatever to get your body used to being out on the road for 2-3 hours, whatever, that was the killer part. I just get bored. I'd say, I gotta quit. This is dumb. I got things to do. Not to mention you're sweating your rear end off.
Yeah.
But no, I wouldn't do it nowadays. But I do like cycling because it less impact and you're able to stay a bit in shape, and it's more expensive though. Running, you just put on some shoes.
Yeah, running's just the shoes. So
the shoes and whatever, but cycling, man, oh man, everything's expensive.
Now, not knowing a whole lot about the general area that you live in now, there's a lot of opportunity to ride bikes and all that up there, or no?
There is.
Okay.
The only thing that has been hard to adjust to, hills. Sure. And there is no flat around here. But it's good. I mean, I could ride a 30-miler back in Michigan. We had some hills, but not like around here. And here I go half that distance. I'll go, I think yesterday I went like 17 or something. But in that 17 miles, I climbed 1,500 feet.
Great goodness.
Total. I mean, you feel it.
Okay.
But it's beautiful. I love it around here because you don't have to face much traffic. There's a lot of greenways.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's good.
Because that's the worst part about. I hate getting out on the road with people like drivers. They don't realize they're behind they're in a 2-ton killing machine, man. And here you are, 160 pounds. Crazy. You don't know what they're doing.
That is true. There's so much going on inside of a vehicle now that's not driving. It's ridiculous. I know. But
it's hard not to be distracted, if you ask me. I mean, think about it.
I agree. Today I was. I won't bring up who it was. Not that I was talking to Teresa Berger today on the way home from work, because I was talking the story that I told you prior to us getting on here about some dance clubs and all that. We were talking about that stuff, and I realized when I got home that you don't think about what route you took to get home, and I'm talking hands free. I've got Bluetooth in the car, so. But there's so much going on that you don't focus on what's going on around you. So let me ask you this. First of all, I did this with Vernon Jones. I told you at this Tennessee, Vernon is a huge baseball guy, like we are.
Right. Big Rangers fan.
Yeah, Rangers fan, yes, sir. So, favorite baseball movie?
Oh boy. I guess I always go back to Major League because I've seen it. I don't know how many times, but I actually liked Love of the Game with Kevin Costner.
Okay, good stuff.
Most people would say a Costner movie would be Field of Dreams, right?
Yep, Field of Dreams.
I mean, but I like, he in Love of the Game, for Love of the Game, he was in, and Kelly Preston was in that movie too, which I really liked. So, and that was kind of cool because he was the end of his career and everything. Was throwing a no-hitter against the Yankees. I mean,
that Bull Durham, another great.
I love Bull Durham. That's hilarious too. I love all of them.
I'm trying to. What was the one? The guy from Frequency, where it was based on a true story. Oh my gosh! And he was a pitcher. Came on late in life. Gosh, I can't remember the name of it now. I should have prepared better.
How come? Hey, you can still hear me, but I can't
hear you. I can hear you.
But can you see? It looks like my picture's frozen.
No.
I just went and turned on the light.
I was fixing to say, I thought you were still gone. You're back?
Oh, I'm back.
Okay. Yeah, your picture's frozen, but I can hear you.
My cheap computer, man. That's all I got. So give me some pointers on how to get this back.
I do not know.
There it is.
Okay.
There's some light now.
Very nice. Okay. Nice. You got nice hat collection. The St. Louis hat. I see St. Louis, Michigan State.
I got it. Oh, you got, yep. Green and white.
Boston up there. Very nice.
Yep.
But what about and I do this since we're all square dance callers, Footloose or Dirty Dancing? What do you prefer?
Oh gosh. I would not have. I should have prepared for that one. No, I guess I'd go with Dirty Dancing, even though some guys would make fun of me. Maybe it's a little cheesy.
No, not Footloose. And Dirty Dancing with Patrick Swayze, man. Nothing wrong with
Patrick Swayze was the man. I mean, Roadhouse.
Oh, stop!
I love Roadhouse.
Roadhouse. I was just talking to somebody. They brought up Next to Ken.
That's great.
That is a highly underrated and talked about movie. That is a great Patrick Swayze.
Yep, he was great in that. But you know what? When you talk about Roadhouse, I still use that. It's a And I even told my daughter that, and you know, she started working at a Starbucks, you know, when she was a teenager, and she was like, you know, some people are just, you're just mean, they're rude and all this stuff. And I'm like, I hearkened back to his movie, and I said, look, think about this. It's a 5-minute interaction. Some people are just that way. It's nothing personal. It is not. It really is not personal. Just be nice. Well, what happens if they yell at you or call your mother this or what? Be nice, because Patrick Swayze said it in the movie.
Yep.
Be nice.
Tell us time to not be nice.
And it's true. I mean, because some people are just, they're not nice people.
I get it. In the real world, for me, being in law enforcement, police work, and I don't get involved so much because I work out of the office now. But you know, I would tell when I was a training officer for a few years, I would tell those guys that I was like, you know, when somebody's cussing you or whatever, they're not cussing you. They're not talking about your mother. They're talking about that uniform's mother.
That's right.
You can't take it personally, you know. Now, if you grew up in the town and you know the person, then you might want to take it personally. Right. But for the most part, we are not like that. So, yeah, it's just like that. And you just be nice and, you know, so.
You just do your job and be polite, but you got to be tough.
Got to be tough
as well, especially in your line of work.
Yeah, well, sometimes I'm getting too old for that business.
Oh yeah,
it's coming. It's wrapping up here shortly, I hope. But,
so in another year, you're going to be retired then.
Yeah. I'll probably do about another year or so, and then I'll be a full-time caller. And not that that's going to do anything. I'll get to travel a little bit more and get out and see some people. I can slide all the way up and spend some time in Nashville and Goodlettsville, north of there where you are.
Well, when you come, you got to pronounce it like the locals do, you know. In Tennessee, it's Goodlettsville is what it is. That's
Goodlettsville. Okay.
But they say, a lot of them around here, they'll say, oh, Goodlettsville.
Goodlettsville. Okay.
They just kind of like to eliminate letters.
I gotcha. Well, before we go, since you've had 5 lifetimes and you've lived in several places, where do you prefer? Beach, mountains, deserts, plains? What do you think?
Oh, boy. I mean, I like it here. And it looks like my screen's frozen again.
It's frozen, but it's frozen in a good spot. It's a good shot of you. So...
No, actually, I am that still. I'm able to.
Wow, that is focus. That is concentration, sir.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about being a ventriloquist someday.
And I will say that there is no body flow whatsoever. So you're brave.
Yeah.
Well, we're back. We had a little technical difficulty. So I'm going to wrap it up. I was talking to Ken, and I got all the stuff that I like to talk about out. Ken, is there anything else you want to talk about, buddy? Anything you got coming up you want to put out there?
Not really. I'm looking forward to some of the trips I got. I mean, I complain about not having a very good agent or a travel planner.
Right.
And you're looking at them.
You said you got something in New Jersey with Ted Lazat. When is that?
I'm kind of looking forward to that because I've done some calling in Pennsylvania, and but this one is their northern New Jersey. It's a 1-day festival. It's like from 1 to 6 or something like that.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So it's gonna. The last I heard, maybe Matthew McGovern. Do you know him?
Yes, sir. I do.
He might be. I originally thought Matthew was in it as well, but maybe they decided to go with 2 callers. I don't know. But either way, I'm looking forward to working with one or both of them.
Yeah, I finally got to meet Matt last year. I went up to Ken Ratucci's Northeast School. And Matt's a big part of that. It's good times. Sure. Well, Ken, it has been a pleasure, sir. Like I said, we met. We actually got to meet a few weeks back in Tennessee, and realized then that we had a lot in common outside of square dancing and as well as square dancing. So it has been a pleasure, man. I'll tell everybody right now, so it kind of puts you on the spot. You are going to come to Atlanta and go to a Braves game with me.
That's right.
Whether it be this year or next year, there will probably be a World Series game this year. So if you want to come down, we're only guessing. So
don't tempt me. I tell you what. Well, I did look at this. The Cardinals are going to be in Atlanta, but I'm going to be in Texas at that time, unfortunately.
Okay.
I am going to catch a Rangers game though.
No, you can't pass that up.
September 10th, I believe it is.
September 10th. Okay.
Like a Sunday. So that's cool when I'm going to be in the Dallas area. That is a monstrosity of a stadium they have. I guess it's not real pretty from the outside, but it's big, just like everything else in Texas.
And everything else in Texas is big. Well, keep an eye out. You might see Vernon.
I imagine Vernon will be at the same game because it was kind of a square dance. They give everybody an opportunity. I think they got a block of seats.
Okay, fantastic.
It's going to be really cool because it's a Sunday. I won't be calling that day anyway. But since I'm in town, I thought, well, that's cool because you get to spend time with square dancers when they're not dancing, and that's kind of a good thing too.
It is. It really is.
Little PR work, maybe.
Yeah.
And Vernon and I will have some good baseball discussions.
Absolutely. Like I said, take a listen to that podcast I did with him, and we've talked some since then. Big baseball guy. So until we meet again, brother, I'll be certainly calling you. I'll let you know how my body flow goes tomorrow night.
That's awesome. And I'll tell you what, the pleasure has been all mine. It was an honor to be asked, and I want to thank you for what you do.
Well, thank you, Ken. It's been a pleasure of mine, sir. I'll talk to you soon. Have a good time when you get back out on the road and when you get up in New Jersey. Of course, Ted watches most of these. But tell Ted I said, hey, looking forward to seeing him. I'll run into Ted probably in December, because they have him and Tony do a thing up there near Ted one weekend, and I'm going to try and go this year. So, Ken, keep watching baseball, brother. Keep calling. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Same with you.
All right, buddy.
Safe travels out there.
Roger that. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for everything, Charlie.
See you, buddy.